And we're back to learning to code, and this is already the 8th course on freecodecamp.org. We are still learning HTML, at least a little bit, and CSS. It's this one right here, building a nutrition label. It's 66 steps, and this is what the end result will look like. The HTML part, it gets shorter, so we are already getting this boilerplate. So let's say basic template, and now we are going to add directly stuff to the body. So if you're new to HTML, check out my playlist. You may want to go to the first courses and learn more about that. But let's dive right in. For this one, we need our h1 tags and put this text in between. Now it's on the right hand side, which represents our browser window. Let's go to step 2. We need a paragraph with this text in between. Step 3, another paragraph. We're going to add lots of these in this course. Basically every line is a new paragraph. You've seen that at the beginning where the end result was presented. Step 4, we've got a little bit of HTML. We need 2 links, so they belong to the head. They're both relationship equals style sheet. First one, we need this web address as the href value, and it will give us access to a font that's not available otherwise by most browsers. So it's this Open Sans. And by adding this link, the browser can get this font from the web address, and then it will be visible in the browser window. A second link is needed to link our HTML and the styles.css. Right here. Once again, both of these links should have the attribute relationship with a value of style sheet. Move on to step 5. We'll select our body, so we are in the CSS now. And we're going to set the font family to our new font that we've linked to. It's the Open Sans. And we need a fallback, which is sans serif, and the way to write it is just to add a comma after your first font and then add it. But keep in mind, Open Sans has a space. So we need to write it in quotation marks, otherwise it won't work. So every time you have a font that has a space, you need to put it in quotation marks in CSS. Let's go to step 6. We use HTML as a selector and change the font size to 16 pixels. Step 7. We are also going to use a lot of div elements. So we use these as containers. The first one, we'll already give it a class of label. And we'll put our h1 and the 2 paragraphs inside of a single container. So best way is to write it like this with the proper indenting. Let's move to step 8. We're going to select our label in CSS. Just as a reminder, you write dot and then the name of the class. Use curly brackets and then add, in this case, the border property, 2 pixels solid and a black color. So we've given our div container right here, which contains the h1 and the 2 paragraphs, a border. Step 9. Let's size the border down by sizing down the container. So we'll give it a width of 270. And that's going to make a lot of the white space on the right hand side vanish. Step 10. Let's add a margin. We are still in our label selector, so we are still targeting this div container. For top and bottom, we use 20 pixels, and for left and right, we'll use auto. That makes it jump to the center. So the first value is for top and bottom, the second for right and left. We also need a padding, and this is for inside of the container. So it's going to put the content a little bit in center, or it's going to align it properly within the container. You see what happens here. 0 is for top and bottom, and a 7 for right and left. Let's move on to step 11. And we now have not just a width of 270, but 288. And this happens because we have the basic width of the container, which is 270. And then we're adding the border 2 times. So 2 times 2 pixels is 274. And then we'll add the padding 2 times. So 2 times 7 is 14, and that makes it 288 pixels instead of 270 as a width. Well, we can fix that by simply using the star selector. See that as a universal selector. And then set the box sizing to border box, and it solves the issue. And from now on, every div will be treated with this property and the value, and that will give us the right width or height whenever we need it. Let's move on to step 12. We're still in the CSS, and we're going to select our H1, which is the nutrition facts. And we'll change the font weight to 800. That's going to make it thicker. So we now have a bold H1, you could say. So watch what happens if I change the value, and then I put it to 800 again. So we now have a bold nutrition facts. Let us align it to the center. It just moves a little bit, but you can see it has an effect. Step 14. Let's adjust the margin. Once more, first value is for top and bottom, and the second for left and right. And by using a negative value, we're going to make it a little bit, let's say, more dense. Okay, move on to step 15. This time we're selecting our paragraphs. And we'll remove the margins. Step 16. We are now back in our index.html. And we'll use div containers to create dividers. For now we haven't defined this class divider, but we're going to do so in the next steps. And it becomes visible what this div container now is. Step 17. Let's select our divider class. So dot divider. As a property we use border bottom, and the value is given. And by giving it a thickness and make it solid, we can already see what it is. So it's right here below the nutrition facts H1, and by writing it like this, we're going to create a straight solid line. For now it's black. We're going to use this hex code right here. And it makes it a little bit grayish. Let's also adjust the margin once more. Two pixels and 0, because we only want to target top and bottom margin, and set left and right to 0. And now we can use this divider class on a div container every time we need such a line. Let us move on to step 18. We're back to targeting our H1. This time we'll use letter spacing. So it's basically a property that adjusts the kerning. Let me exaggerate it by using, let's say, 10, and you can see the distance between the letters is increased by doing that. Step 19. Now we're creating a new class, which is a class bold, and we're going to use that to make paragraphs or headlines bold. For now we'll just add it to our second paragraph inside of our label div. We haven't targeted it yet in CSS, so nothing will change. But in step 20, we're going to target it. So dot bold, curly brackets, use the font weight of 800. We've used that for our H1, so we can delete it there. Right here, we can get rid of it. And in the next step, step 21, we can simply add the class bold to our H1 as well, and that will give it the same font weight as our paragraph. So this class can now be added to basically anything. Step 22, we use a span element, and that's also helpful if we want to style certain aspects of text. For example, here in the paragraph, we'll give it a class of right, which is not selected right now in CSS. Well, we're going to do it in step 23. And we'll make it float to right, and I will put the stuff that's nested inside of the span tag. So right here, our 2/3 cup, 55 grams, it will float it to the right hand side of our div container. And now we can use that class to make anything float to the right. Step 24, let us add a header. We're back in our index.html. And it should be inside of our label class div container. So let's add it here, and indent the H1, the div divider in our two paragraphs. Step 25. We're going to specifically target the H1 inside of the header. It's written like this. So header in H1 without a comma or anything, just a single space in between. And now if we add a new H1, it wouldn't get all of these properties and values. This would only apply to H1s inside of the header element. Step 26. And here you can see why we did all of this. So for future elements, we can simply use our classes, and we will get dividers, for example, like here. It gets the class divider, and it gives us already the line. And we're going to also add a new class, which is called LG. You can see that as a large divider. And in the next step, we're going to select this LG class, and that makes it a little bit clearer what this now is. Let's add a height. It's .lg, not minus, obviously. And you can see right here It gives us a little bit of spacing between the last paragraph and our new divider. Also, let's add an MD class, which is medium. And if we give it a background color, it becomes even more obvious why we've increased the height. Step 28. Let us set the border property to 0. And we'll use the medium class later on. Step 29. Let's add the next div container, but this time it's not meant to be a divider. It's meant to be a new container for more paragraphs, maybe more headlines. We'll see in the next steps. But it's basically the same as our label div container. So you can use these div tags for creating dividers or for creating simple boxes and containers for your content. Let's add a paragraph inside, and we can give it a bold class. This is already defined, so it's going to make this text bold if we just add the class. And we are also supposed to give it the SM text. I guess it's small text class. This is not defined yet or not selected in our CSS, so that won't change anything. But we're going to select it now in step 31. We'll change the font size to 0.85 root EM. And if you're wondering what REM, so root EM, stands for, it's a relative size. So our base font size for the HTML is 16 pixels, and by using 0.85 root EM, we'll multiply 16 by 0.85, and that gives us the new font size for our SM text class div container. So the amount per serving text has now 13.6 pixels of font size. Step 32. Let's add an H1. And it's still inside of our div class calories info. Text is given. And we can use our span tag again to make the value float to the right. All that we have to do is to nest 230 within it and then add our class, which we'll simply call the right. And this will make the 230 jump to the right hand side right here. Step 33. Let us select this class, calories info, and we will only select the H1s in between. So it's this class, our div container, and it has the calories 230 as an H1 nested. So we're going to select this in the CSS now. And we'll simply adjust the margin. Once more, the first value is for top and bottom, and the second value for left and right. Step 34. Now we're going to select all of the span elements within the class or within our div container that has the class calories info. And we'll change its font size and make it a bit bigger with 1.2 em. What was it? Well, here's our div class calories info. And the span, it nests at 230. So this is what we are specifically targeting here. It has put it a little bit out of line with the calories. So we'll have to fix that. Let's go to step 35. So there's an overflow problem which causes it to be out of line. And we can just use overflow as a property and set it to hidden. And that at least helps us with our div container. Step 36, let's adjust the correct position for the 230 so that it fits to the calories. And we can use margin top for that. It says it right here, it's a little bit of guesswork. But 7 pixels works fine. Obviously -7 pixels. But maybe you start with -2 and you see, it doesn't really work, so make it -3. And step by step it moves upwards, and -7 gives you the correct alignment. Step 37. We're back in the index.html and we'll add yet another div container. We'll already give it a class, divider, which was right here in our CSS, so we'll give it a border by using that. There you can see the line already, and by giving it the MD class. Right here it is. We'll give it a black background color and set the border to 0. Let's select only the MD and we'll increase its height, and now we can see it. So here's our divider MD div. Large has a height of 10 pixels, so it's thicker, the MD of 5 pixels. So this is why we had different classes for this. It gives us different divider styles. Step 39. A new div is needed. And it's not going to be a divider, it's yet another container for more content. We call it daily minus value. And we use SM text already on it, so small text. We have that class selector right here, so it's going to make the font size a little bit smaller. For now the div doesn't have any content, so we can't see it. But let me add that. Adding a p element, and we'll need percentage of daily value, right here this text. And we want to make it bold and float it to the right. We already have classes for that, so just add it to the paragraph. Here's our bold class. It increased the font weight to 800. And here's our right class. It makes it float to the right of our container. It has also made it float out of our div container. So that's an issue that we need to fix. But let us first add a new divider in step 40. Step 41. If we add a clear property with the value of right, we can bring back our daily value inside of our entire div container, so the big one. Step 42. We'll add yet another P, so a paragraph, text is given. We use our classes and the span tag to style it. We want total fat to be bold. And we want the 10% to float to the right. Can achieve that by simply using span elements for each. Step 43. Yet another P element. And we once more use spans to style it. So this may not be the most exciting course in freecodecamp.org, but it definitely teaches you how to use classes to style your text. And it may be a little bit repetitive, but after you've gone through it yourself, you will definitely not forget how to use these class selectors in CSS and then apply them in your HTML. Step 44. We're going to add a new class, which is indent. Now we haven't used that, so it's not going to have an effect on our browser display on the right hand side, but we should add it to our paragraph. And in step 45 we are going to select this class in the CSS, so dot indent, curly brackets, margin left, set it to 1 EM. And now we have a little bit of an indentation here, so we can move it a little bit inwards to the right hand side. Let's target our daily value class, but only the paragraphs inside of it. And this was right here. Here's our div container with the class daily value, and everything inside, as long as it is a P element, will now be selected in the CSS. We'll add a border bottom, 1 pixel solid, and here you can see it already, so it underlines the total fat and the saturated fat, which are both paragraphs nested inside of our class daily value, or inside of the div container that has the class daily value. Let's move on to step 47. Let's add no divider to our p element right here, and to the second p element down there. Step 48. This is definitely new. It's another pseudo-selector. We haven't used that in freecodecamp so far as I can recall. But an example is given. And in this case, we are supposed to modify our daily value class, or specifically only the paragraphs inside of that class. So we can directly use this here. Then add this double dot and then type in the class. So no divider. We've used that class before. Oh, my mistake, I should have written that correctly. So after the p, then the double dot, you'll have to add the not. So we're going to apply all of this except for the no divider class. And this is what it does. So our daily value right here, so percentage daily value and this little star icon, it's not going to be affected by this, as this is the not in our pseudo-selector, but everything else is affected. And it is given this border bottom 1 pixel solid with the color. So if you look at this pseudo-selector, or what we've written here in general, you can see that the border bottom 1 pixel solid with the color is applied to every paragraph inside of the daily value class. So everything that's nested inside of the div that has the daily value class is given the border bottom, but not the ones that have the class no divider. And we've used the no divider 2 times inside of the div with the class daily value. It's number 1 up here where it says percentage daily value and the star icon, and also down here where it says saturated fat 1 gram, and also the 5% is nested in it. So this is not given the border bottom anymore thanks to this pseudo-selector, but the total fat line, so total fat 8 grams and 10%, it is given this border bottom, and this is what this line of code does. Let us move on to step 49. We'll need a new divider. So we're going to create a new div element and give it our class that we've used previously already. It should be after the second p element that has the class no divider, so right here, div class divider. Don't forget a closing tag. And we'll move on to step 50. Let's add more paragraphs. We'll use an I tag, which can be used to make stuff italic. We're only going to nest the trans inside of it. Let's give the p element a class of no divider. That gets rid of the bottom line. And we're also going to indent it, so give that class as well to it. Now we're good to move on to step 51. We'll add yet another divider, so div class divider. Don't forget the closing tag. Step 52. Now it's going to be a little bit repetitive, so we need more p elements. And we're going to use the span and our classes within the p element and the span element to style it. Step 53. Yet another paragraph. And yet more span elements and classes to style it. Step 54. And one more paragraph inside of this group. Step 55. Again, it's a paragraph, but we're going to add a different class here, because we want to indent it. And we need the no divider class to get rid of this little line right here. And then we'll add a normal divider, so a div container with the class divider. Step 56. More p elements and more dividers. Step 57. And we're going to use a new class, which is double-indent. So I guess it stands for double-indent. We'll just add it right here to our last div container. And now we're going to select it in our CSS in step 58. Set the margin to 2em, but it's supposed to be only the left margin, so make it 0, 0, 0, then 2em, as it's clockwise, so the first value is top, second right, third bottom, and the fourth is for the left. Step 59. One more p element. And let's use our new class, the double-indent. And you can directly write margin left 2em instead of margin 0, 0, 0, 2em. So that's also possible. Let's style the text a little bit more. And we'll add a divider. Step 60. One more paragraph. Text is given. We use the span to make the protein bold. We want to remove the bottom border, so we need a noDivider class. And then we're going to add a large divider below it. So we need a div element and give it a class of divider LG. But I can just copy paste it right here. And it's supposed to look like this one right here. So let me add the LG. And we've got a large divider at the bottom. Step 61. Business as usual. So a paragraph. We use the span elements to style them. It is just supposed to be on the right hand side, but it shouldn't be bold. So let me get rid of the bold class right here. Step 62. Nothing really new in this one, just another paragraph. And we'll use our right class to make it align to the right. Let us directly add the next one. Step 63. That's our final P element. We'll align 6% to the right, and we'll remove the border at the bottom, so we need the noDivider class. Step 64. And first we need a medium divider. So it's obviously a div element and it has the class of divider. It should be medium, so it's divider MD. Afterwards, a P element with the class of node. We haven't used that class in our CSS, but I'm pretty sure we'll do in the next step. Step 65, we'll select our node class, set the font size to 0.6 root EM, so it's going to be 0.6 times 16 pixels. And we'll adjust the margin, 5 pixels for top and bottom and 0 for left and right. Step 66. We'll adjust the padding of our node, set to 0 and 8 pixels, and the text-indent property should be at minus 8 pixels. And that's it. This is our nutrition label. And again, go through this course in responsive web design, section yourself. It was this one, learn typography by building a nutrition label, and if you get stuck, refer to my walkthrough. In general, I hope this video was helpful. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.